Welcome back, focused learners. So you want to prove your ability to scale enterprise AI and actually align it with real business goals. Well, if that's the case, the AB-100 Agentic AI Architect exam is basically your final boss. In this explainer, we're cutting through the noise and breaking down the exact architectural practices that separate a secure, compliant enterprise AI solution from just, a simple AI app. We are getting straight to the high-yield facts you need to pass.
But before we get into the weeds, let's do a quick reality check from the community. If you look at discussions from folks who have actually sat in that exam room, you are going to see comments exactly like this one. Now, don't get me wrong, the official 8-hour Microsoft Learn Path does a truly fantastic job covering the basics, but the actual exam, it goes significantly deeper into agentic patterns, complex orchestration, and especially failure scenarios that, frankly, barely get a mention in the intro materials. And that is exactly why we put this explainer together, to bridge that massive gap between the basic modules and the highly complex architectural scenario questions you are absolutely going to face on test day. Okay, let's dive into this structured syllabus. We'll start with a quick reality check on the exam structure, then break down the big 3 domains: plan, design, and deploy. After that, we'll correct some outdated information that's floating around and lock it all in with our ultimate memory map.
Starting off with Section 1, the AB-100 reality check. Let's understand the stakes here.
To pass this exam, you really have to understand Microsoft's strategic blueprint. Keep in mind, the AB-100 is not just about knowing how to write a good prompt for an AI. This is an architect-level certification. That means you're being tested on how to justify, govern, secure, and maintain these solutions at a massive enterprise scale. And this brilliantly illustrates where you need to spend your time. While the plan and design phases each make up roughly 25 to 30% of the exam, look at that deploy phase. It is a massive 44%. This heavy weighting is exactly where people fail. It is so easy to get caught up in the fun parts of designing a cool agent, but Microsoft really wants to know if you can handle the analytics, the telemetry, application lifecycle management, and responsible AI, because at the end of the day, that's the true job of an architect.
Moving right along to Section 2, plan, strategy, and data. Before you even think about grounding any agent, you have to verify data quality and permissions. Dataverse for operational data, Azure AI Search for semantic retrieval, that's your baseline.
Now, during the planning phase, your absolute most critical architectural build versus buy choice comes down to the platform. Copilot Studio is your bread and butter for low-code, Dataverse-centered, multi-channel business agents. But, and this is huge, if the exam scenario mentions keywords like code first, custom models, or semantic kernel, you must immediately pivot your brain to Microsoft Foundry. Seriously, never mix these two up on the exam.
Another critical planning choice is orchestration. Classic orchestration uses very rigid trigger phrases and deterministic topics. It does exactly what you tell it to do. Generative orchestration, on the other hand, dynamically selects topics, tools, and connected agents based on conversational context and descriptions. Now, here's the trick. If an exam scenario strictly demands deterministic trigger phrases to ensure a very tightly controlled workflow, do not get tricked into selecting generative orchestration just because it sounds more advanced. Read the exact requirement, always.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds into the design phase for agents and extensibility. This is where your architectural choices get a lot more granular.
Listen, here is a very common pitfall you are going to see on exam day. You absolutely must know the difference between a fallback topic and an escalate topic. A fallback topic handles unclear, unrecognized, or unmatched user input. It is basically how the bot says, I didn't quite catch that. An escalate, or transfer conversation topic, specifically hands off that conversation to a live human representative, like over in Dynamics 365 Contact Center. Never, ever confuse a fallback action with an escalation to a human.
All right, arriving at Section 4, deploy, monitoring, and governance. Like we talked about earlier, this domain makes up nearly half the exam. You have to master compliance and telemetry to survive this section.
Now, what's really interesting about these scenarios is how precisely you must map governance tools to their use cases. It's all about pattern matching. If the exam asks how to enforce allowed deployment regions, boom, Azure policy. If they ask about continuous regulatory compliance verification and posture, you choose Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And if the requirement revolves around sensitivity labels, data loss prevention, or AI data security investigations, your answer is always Microsoft Purview. You also need to drill these strict Power Platform ALM rules into your memory. Think of application lifecycle management like a very strict factory assembly line. You always start building in unmanaged development environments. Next, you package your agents, connectors, and flows together, heavily using environment variables so you aren't hard-coding anything. And finally, you never edit directly on the factory floor. You deploy managed solutions to production using automated pipelines.
Pivoting to Section 5, correcting outdated exam answers. Let's clear up some bad info.
So, because the Microsoft AI landscape evolves literally at lightning speed, there's a lot of outdated information floating around in unofficial study materials. We really need to explicitly call out these traps so they don't cost you points. If you're using third-party prep PDFs, like that popular 103-question review circulating online right now, be extremely cautious. For example, if a question asks how to organize product catalog data from multiple AI systems, old materials might suggest disjointed databases, but the current, correct answer is to centralize that catalog data right in Microsoft Dataverse.
Knowing what has been deprecated is absolutely vital. One classic trap question asks about deploying a Copilot Studio agent. Older prep materials will tell you to use the ALM accelerator for Microsoft Power Platform. Actually, scratch that. That tool is entirely deprecated. The crucial point here is that the current, correct answer for Copilot Studio ALM is to use Power Platform solutions and deployment pipelines. Trust the current Microsoft Learn guidance, not those outdated PDFs. Which brings us to our final section, the ultimate memory map. We're going to do a quick rapid-fire drill to create some quick association memory hooks for exam day. Okay, I'm going to simulate the exam experience. Here is your strict requirement. You have a Microsoft Foundry agent. You need to ensure that this agent can dynamically use external tools at runtime without you having to go in and manually update the agent's code. What exact architectural component do you need to pull up to make this happen? Take a second. Did you get it? The answer is a Model Context Protocol, or MCP server. MCP is heavily featured right now because it beautifully decouples the AI agent from the actual tool implementation itself. By providing a standard server interface, the agent can discover and utilize tools totally on the fly. So keep an eye out for MCP anytime the exam mentions dynamic runtime tool discovery. We have covered a ton of ground today. The critical differences between Copilot Studio and Foundry, the strict, non-negotiable rules of ALM, and the exact governance tools you need for data residency and compliance. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final question to really ponder. Are you truly ready for that deployment heavy lifting? Remember, almost half of your entire score depends on mastering tools like Purview and Azure Policy. If you're feeling even a little shaky on those, stop right now, take a detour back to the official Microsoft documentation, and shore up your defenses. You've got this. Best of luck on the AB-100, and keep building those brilliant solutions.